1 lakh women who learn cycling in the year 1991. Cycling is their independent. They don't want to depend on anyone or they don't want to wait for the buses. The women who has learned cycling, they were not dependent on any buses. They used to go on themselves, sell their produce and come back. How does cycling empower rural women according to P. Sainath? Hello everyone, I am Babita Tamaya, lecturer, Department of English, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. In my previous revision class, I revised the chapter, The Otter. In my today's revision class, I will be revising Where There Is a Wheel. Before I move on to the synopsis, let me tell you something interesting fact. Is it not so excited that the wheels were existed before 3400 BC ago? And this instrument was first used by the terracotta makers, that is the pot makers. The pot makers or the mud pot makers used these wheels to make pots. Somebody thought of using these wheels for chariots in Greek symbolization. Cycling is a social movement for the women of Pudukkottai, which is one of the poorest district in Tamil Nadu. So as I told, this chapter is a social movement through cycling in Pudukkottai and it is one of the poorest district of Tamil Nadu. Over 1 lakh women have taken bicycling. It is not 1, 2, 10 or 100. It is 1 lakh women who learned cycling in the year 1991. I'm talking about the year 1991. Over 1 lakh women who had taken up bicycling. Most of them are neoliterates who use bicycling as a symbol of independence, freedom and mobility. Now, what do you mean by neoliterates? The educated, newly educated women also. Not only 1 lakh women, among them, most of the women were newly educated women who used bicycling and they told that it is the symbol of independence, freedom and mobility. Cycling has given new meaning and social identity to women, agriculture workers, quarry laborers and village health nurses. So who all use this bicycling? It is the women, the agriculture workers, quarry laborers, village health nurses. Not only these, even the Balwadi and the Anganwadi, they are known as the babysitters, workers of gem cutters and school teachers also have joined the bandwagon. So all these women used bicycling for their daily purpose. Along with them, there were also Grama Sevikas and midday meal workers who have joined the new movement. All these women, they thought that cycling is their independent. They don't want to depend on anyone or they don't want to wait for the buses. They say that it is our right, it is our independence. Over 70,000 of these women have taken part in public exhibition contests to proudly display their new skills. Out of 1 lakh women, 70,000 women have taken part in a exhibition cum contest and they proudly say that it is their new skill. New skill, it means to say that it is a passion for them. Learning cycle is a passion. If you ask right now, you may say no. But in the year 1991, so it was a passion for the women. Learning bicycle was a passion for them. So they have also taken part. 70,000 women have taken part in the exhibition cum contest. When the women has taken part in the exhibition and the contest, almost all the men, the people of Pudukkottai were stunned. They were shocked to see the rally where the women had taken part, that too 70,000 women. N. Kananmal, Areola's central coordinator and one of the pioneers of the cycling movement, believes that this movement gave confidence to women and reduced their independence on men. So it is N. Kananmal, another central coordinator woman who is giving a lot of confidence for the women who wants to learn cycling. And she also says that it is the women who doesn't want to depend on men. They say that we are independent now. In 1991, the women did not have so much of power. So what the woman has to do, she has to sit at home, that is in four walls. She has to take care of her family, take care of her kids, do the household work. For that she was meant. And now she says that is N. Kananmal, she says that now it is the independence. Cycling has given independence for women where they don't even want or they don't depend on men right now. Women had to put up with vicious attacks on their character. When the women started with cycling, what happens? The men started passing comments, that is the mean comments on the women, and they started to speak about their character. But none of the women paid their attention. In today's generation, you can see a girl or a woman riding a bicycle, riding a motor car, flying an aeroplane. So I have seen all this stuff, and in the year, that is in before ages, if the woman had rode a bicycle or an aeroplane, so they were called as a tomboys. But now they say that we are independent, we are not depending on anyone. But Arioli gave cycling social sanction, so women took it. The whole phenomena was the brainchild of the popular former district collector Sheila Rani Chunkat. Her idea in 1991 was to train female activists so that literacy would reach women in interior. So here, not all the women in Pudukkottai learned cycling. There were few women in Pudukkottai who stood back and they did not want to learn cycling. So what was the idea of Sheila Rani Chunkat for those kind of women? Her idea was to educate such women and train them, and then they can train the women in the interior areas. Chunkat pushed the banks to give loans for the women to buy bicycles. So there were few women who wanted to buy bicycles, but they did not have so much of amount. So she asked the banks to give loans for the women to buy bicycles. Since everybody wanted to learn cycling, it led in short of ladies cycle. So they preferred Jan cycle. So what happened? When most of the ladies in Pudukkottai wanted to learn cycling, and Sheila Rani Chunkat pushed the banks to give them the loans. At that time, there was a shortage in ladies' bicycle. So did the ladies wait for the ladies' bicycle? No, they did not wait. They were like, we will go with the Jan's bicycle. We don't mind, we'll buy Jan cycles. And to this day, thousands of women here ride Jan's bicycle. Because there was shortage of ladies' bicycle, thousands of women are riding Jan's bicycles. After International Women's Day on March 8, 1992, that is after an year, on the International Day on March 1992, this district, that is the Pudukkottai district, can never be the same. Flags on the handlebars, bells ringing, over 1,500 female cyclists took Pudukkottai by storm. So, after the International Women's Day, that is on March 8, 1992, what happened in Pudukkottai? 1,500 female activists took part in the rally, and all the 1,500 women had worn a same costume, and the flags were tied on the handlebars. They were ringing the bells, and all the people, that is the men in the Pudukkottai district, were stunned to see that. They were shocked to see the 1,500 women taking part in the rally, because each and every time when the women started to ride a bicycle, they passed the mean comments, but they did not pay any attention towards them. There, all women cycle rally stunned the town's inhabitants with its massive showing. So, the complete town, that is the inhabitants, were stunned with the massive showing of the female cyclists which took part after the International Women's Day. Yes, Kanakarajan, owner of Ram Cycles, saw a rise of over 350% in the sale of ladies' cycle in 1 year. One way it is a gain for him, in the other way it is a loss. So here Kanakarajan, he is the owner of Ram Cycles, and in 1 year he has owned 350% of the sales in ladies cycle. How many percent? It is 350% in 1 year. So one way he has gained something in his life. Another way it is a pain for him. Now let's see why he had a pain here. Because lot of sales in the ladies cycle for 1 year he got 350%. So it means to say that because there was shortage in ladies cycle, the women started to buy the gents cycle, and in a year he got 350%. And the second thing is here N. Kanakarajan is telling to the author, that is the narrator P. Sainathan. He thought P. Sainathan is an undercoverage agent. He is from the sales tax department. He is telling the author that he had 350% in the ladies cycle for 1 year. He thought that he is from the undercoverage department because he was not paying the tax. He thought he is from the income tax department. But later he got to know not all males were hostile, some were even encouraging. Not all men were speaking or they were passing mean comments, but there were few men who were encouraging women to learn the cycling. Among them, one is Muthu Bhaskaran, and he is an Arivoli activist who wrote the famous cycling song, and that has become the anthem. So Muthu Bhaskaran has written a song for cycling, and the women who learn cycling, they thought that it is their anthem. It became the anthem for the cycling women. In a single week in 1992, more than 70,000 women displayed their cycling skills at the public exhibition contest run by Arioli. Before 1 week, that is on the International Day, it was only 1,500 females who has taken part, and within a week there was a change, and again there was a rally, and 70,000 women had displayed their skill here. That is in the public exhibition contest which was run by the Arioli activists. So when the 70,000 women had taken part in the rally, the UNICEF was stunned and they sanctioned 50 mopeds for the Arioli women activists. What do you mean by UNICEF? United Nations International Children Education Fund. The UNICEF was stunned by these 70,000 women activists who has taken part in the contest, and they sanctioned 50 mopeds for free. Cycling has had very definite economic implications. It boosts income. Some of the women here sell agricultural or other produce within a group of village. The women who doesn't know cycling, who couldn't afford cycling, what did they do? Whatever the agriculture or the small produce, whatever they produce at home, they sell within their villages, within the groups only they used to sell. There are 3 examples here. One is Jamila Bibi, and she says, "It is my right. Cycling is my right." And she never gave that. She says, "It has given independence to me." When she started first with her cycling, the people started to comment on her. They started to speak about her character, but she paid no attention. The second one is Fatima, who is a secondary school teacher, and she couldn't even afford 1,200 rupees to buy a bicycle. So every evening she used to hire a bicycle for half an hour, only to know the independence. She wants that feel of independence. So she used to pay 1,200 rupees and hire a bicycle. She did not have 1,200 also to buy her bicycle. And the next one is Awakani. Jamila Bibi, Fatima and their friend Awakani. And what did she do in the sense? She learned cycling. Not only learning, she also thought of helping the other women by teaching them cycling. the women who did not know about it. And here, the women who knew cycling, they used to sell their produce by their own. They were not dependent on anyone. But the women who did not learn, whatever they produce, whatever the agriculture products they have, they used to sell in their villages, or else they have to depend on the men, maybe the husband or brother or father. They have to depend on these people. For them, the bicycle cuts down on time wasted in waiting for buses. This is a crucial on poorly connected routes. For them, the bicycle cuts down on time wasted in waiting for the buses. So here, the women who has learned cycling, they were not dependent on any buses. They used to go on themselves, sell their produce and come back. But the women who did not have cycling, they have to waste a lot of time waiting for the buses. To reach from one village to the another village, they have to walk, wait for the bus until the bus comes, that their time is wasted. Secondly, it gives you much more time to focus on selling your produce. If you have your bicycle, if you have learned bicycle, so whatever the produce or whatever the things you have produced, you can sell and you will get lot of leisure time. You can save your time. You can come back home and relax also. Thirdly, it enlarges the area you can hope to cover. So before going from the house, you'll just plan how many villages I can cover within this day. If it is 2 or 3, you're not even waiting for the buses, not dependent on men. You go on your own with your bicycle, sell your produce and you can cover whatever you have planned a day before. Or else you can also cover more areas also or more villages also. It depends on the distance. Lastly, it can increase your leisure time too, should you choose to take a few moments off. By going on your own with the help of the bicycling, you get too much of leisure time where you can relax. Small producers who used to wait for buses were often dependent on fathers, brothers, husbands or sons to reach the bus stop. The small producers, what they want to do, if they want to sell their produce, they want to depend on these people. Without their help or without their support, because they have to drop them to the bus stop, there they have to carry the bus, then they have to go to the other villages to sell their produce. It is not so easy. But the women says we should be independent, not to depend on men. They could cover only a limited number of villages to sell their produce. The women who is depending on men, they can cover only limited number of villages to sell their produce. Some women walked. Those who cannot afford bicycles still do. Some women, they couldn't afford a bicycle. So what do? They just walk from one village to other village to sell their produce. These women had to rush back early to tend to these children and perform other chores like fetching water. The women who walked from one village to other village, what they have to do? They have to come back from their work before the children comes home, and they have to perform other chores like fetching water. They have to walk for a very long distance to fetch water also. Those who have bicycles now combine these different tasks with nonchalance, which means you can, even along some remote road, see a young mother, child on the bar, produce on the carrier. So the women who have bicycle, what they do? Morning they go, sell their produce. While coming back, you can see mother with a child, and there is a bar with that a carry water pot. You can see the water pot is also carried. She is just, while coming back, whatever the household chores is there, that is to fetch water. While coming back itself, she pick her child, collect the water and she come back. You can see the bar at the back of the cycle where the 2 pots are hanging to carry the water. She could be carrying 2, perhaps even 3 pots of water. Sometimes she carries 2 or sometimes 3 pots of water she carries in her bicycle. hung across the back and cycling towards work or home. That is, the pots are hung at the back. Sometimes before or sometimes while coming back from work, she gets a water. So here the author was speaking about 1991. After a few years, again he has come back to the same village. When I returned to Pudukkottai in April 1995, 1991 I was speaking about. So after that, after 4 years, again P. Sainathan is back to the Pudukkottai village. The craze was still on. What was the craze? The craze of cycling was still in process. But a large number of women were unable to afford bicycle. But there are large women were not able to afford a bicycle. Each now cost around 1,400 rupees. In the year 1991, it was 1,200 rupees. But now your pocket money would be more than that. And in the year 1995, the cost of the bicycle was around 1,400. And a new generation was coming up that was too young to gain from the first round. So the new generation, the small kids, they were not so much happy in cycling because each and every woman in the district of Pudukkottai have learned cycling and they did not have so much of happiness in that. But Pudukkottai remains unique among Indian districts for the stunning proportion of women who have taken to cycling and the enthusiasm for gaining the skill among the rest. But whatever it is, the enthusiasm, the gain, the independence, what they had in their life was really a wonderful one because they did not want to depend on any men. They said that it is our independence, freedom and mobility. This is all about the chapter where there is a wheel. Let's move on with the 1-mark questions. From this chapter, you can expect 2 1-mark questions and 2 4-mark questions. What has been a chosen medium for the rural women of Pudukkottai? What has been a chosen medium? It is the cycling. What was the cost of a bicycle as mentioned in the essay? It is 1,200 rupees. That is in the year 1991, it was 1,200 rupees. In the year 1995, it is 1,400. Name the Areolis Central Coordinator and one of the pioneers of the cycling movement. It is N. Kannammal. The another lady where she never learned cycling. While explaining itself, I told not all the women learned cycling. There were few women who did not want or they did not learn cycling. Among them, one was N. Kannammal, who was the popular former district collector of Pudukkottai district. It is Sheila Rani Chunkat. And what did she do? She pushed the banks to give loans for the women to buy the bicycles. Who was the owner of Ram Cycle? Yes, Kanakarajan was the owner of Ram Cycle. So what was the percentage he got for an year? It was 350% because there was shortage in ladies' cycle. The women started to buy men's cycle. Name the Areoli activist who penned the famous cycling song. Who was the activist who penned the cycling song and the women followed that as their anthem? It is Muthu Bhaskaran. How many female cyclists took part in the International Women's Day in 1992? It is 1,500 females. That is after the International Women's Day on March 8th. It was 1,500 females who took part and all the men of the Pudukkottai district were stunned to see the rally. Who is considered as the humble vehicle in the lesson? It is the bicycle is considered as the humble vehicle of Pudukkottai district. Name any one of the women who have trained young women from the community in the art of cycling. As I told, there were 3 women. It is the example for the people of Pudukkottai. One is Jamila, Fatima and Avakani. So Jamila says, it is my right. Cycling gives me independence. Fatima, she is a secondary school teacher. She couldn't afford a bicycle, so she used to hire a bicycle for half an hour every evening. And Avakani, she has learned bicycling, But even then, she is teaching the women, other women who has not learned. So these are the three women who stood as an example for the people of Pudukkottai, which is the poorest district in Tamil Nadu. Moving on to the 4 marks question. How does cycling empower rural women according to P. Sainath? Cycling seems the chosen medium for rural women as symbol of independence, freedom and mobility. As I told, they have chosen their medium of independence, freedom and mobility. The main things is that cycling gives confidence to women. Very importantly, it reduces their dependence on men. So, cycling has given confidence and it also has reduced the dependence on men. They use bicycles to cart provision on their own from other places. For them, bicycles cut down on time wasted for buses. Cycling eases selling their product, it boosts their income and increase the leisure time. The women who had cycling, whatever the agricultural products they have produced, they'll sell, they'll come back home and they will get lot of leisure time too. It brings self-respect. What they say, cycling, it gives us self-respect. We are not dependent on anyone. Feeling of goodness, confidence, freedom and liberty. The bicycle serves as a metaphor for freedom. So what does it give? It gives them the self-respect, confidence, goodness, freedom and liberty. How did Sheila Rani Chinkat promote the empowerment of women? Sheila Rani Chinkat, the district collector, promoted the empowerment of women by including cycling in the literacy drive. She trained the female activists so that literacy would reach women in the interior. As I told, not all the women in Pudukkottai were ready or they learned cycling. There were few women who stood back, who did not want to learn cycling. So, Sheila Rani Chinkat's idea was to educate those women and then teach the women, that is the interior women, about cycling. She also included the mobility as a part of her literacy drive. She pushed the banks to give loans for the women to buy bicycles. She made each block to accept special duties in promoting drive and gave great personal attention. Cycling boosted income and the bicycles cut down on time wasted in waiting for buses as they carried agriculture and other producers within a group to sell them. So, the cycling also helped the women to cut down their waste of time in waiting for the buses and they could sell their produce and come back to their home safely. They can cover the large areas and increase in leisure time too. So whatever the areas they have planned for, they could cover and they could even get more leisure time also. Cycling has empowered the rural women to improve their economic aspect, self-respect and independence. The concept of women empowerment is elaborated through simple act of cycling. How it is elaborated? With the simple act of cycling. Moving on to the third one. In what different ways has cycle empowered rural women in Pudukkottai? As I told, cycling as a social movement in Pudukkottai started to hit out the backwardness and as a result, the women were empowered. In the past 18 months, nearly 1 lakh women, most of them neo-literates, have taken bicycling as a symbol of independence, freedom and mobility. As I told, neo-literates, newly educated women, not only 1 lakh, among the 1 lakh, the many were new educated, that is newly literate people. It swept across the district. All professional women, agriculture workers, quarry laborers, teachers, village health nurses have taken cycle such that one can see a direct link between cycling and personal independence. It is not only Jamila Fatima and Awakani. Along with that, these were the few women who have taken cycling, and they say that it is our independence. It gives us self-respect. So it is considered as a humble vehicle. It reduces their dependence on men. They use cycle to collect water, cart provisions from other places. So how the cycle is useful? Cycle is used to sell their produce. They can buy their cart, they can buy their provision, they can collect the water and reach home. All women ought to learn cycling, and in turn, their experience would enrich the literacy movement. Mobility among women improved their confidence. All women cycle rally stunned the town inhabitants. It gives more time to focus on selling produce, and it enlarges the area to cover long distance and increase their leisure time. So the women who has afforded the bicycle, whatever the agricultural produce they have, they could cover a large area, they can increase their income, and they can get lot of leisure time too. So while coming back, as I told, they'll collect their children as well as they fetch the water in the water pots that you can see the handle at the back, and they come home. At last, P. Sainathan says that is after 4 years when he came back to the village Pudukkottai in 1995, he can see the same spirit and the same enthusiasm that the women of Pudukkottai still learn cycling and they still using bicycles. With this, I am ending my today's revision session where there is a whale. Have a good day. Thank you.